All right, so let's talk about the Diablo 4 beta wrapping up right here in the next couple of hours. I got to play the beta here over the weekend. I pre-ordered the game on Battle.net, and I'm running it on PC using a 4070 Ti, 32 gigs of RAM, and a Ryzen 9 5950X processor. The most obvious thing about the beta and the game itself, right, is because I don't really want to dive too deep into the actual beta and the issues that we had. We will talk about that briefly, but we all understand, or we should understand, that this is a beta and not representative of the actual full release that's coming out in June. So the long queues, the constant crashes, the potential memory leak issues, and the bugs where the game would crash upon quest completion, though annoying when they actually happened as I was trying to play the beta, is not something that I would anticipate to be there upon full release of the game. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. Instead, let's focus on the actual meat and potatoes, the game itself. Graphically speaking, the game looks absolutely beautiful. I'm very, very glad that they ditched the animated look of Diablo 3. Now, listen, there was nothing wrong with the way that Diablo 3 looked, but with Diablo 4 going for a more somewhat realistic approach, I can appreciate how much better this game looks. Obviously, technology has advanced and hardware has gotten better, but they could have easily gone for this animated look, and I'm just glad that they did not go with that look at all. And if you like that look, there's nothing wrong with that at all, by any means. It's just a matter of preference, just a matter of opinion. As far as the gameplay is as good as ever. Listen, if you've played Diablos 1 or 2 or 3, you've already played 4, okay? So for the beta, I played as a sorcerer because Mage Life chose me, right? And I absolutely love how this game plays. One of the things that I adore so far about the beta is the simplicity of the skill tree this time around. Typically, the skill trees have been kind of broken up into different skill trees, if you will. And in this one, it's just one path to follow, and you kind of make your choices along the way. The addition of a proper modern map and the ability to mark your destinations and have the game show you the way to a destination, I think, is another quality of life feature that I'm very happy to see here. I'm not a fan typically of games holding my hand and taking me from point A to point B, but if you've played other Diablos before this one, you know that the game didn't necessarily do a good job of helping you identify where you needed to go. At least I didn't feel like it did a great job of doing so. The inventory system, oh my god, I am so glad that we're not going to have to play Tetris anymore in order to manage our inventory system. Like, it worked back then, it was fine back then, but nowadays just having an item take one slot of inventory is all it needs to do. I don't need to worry about how big the item is per how much inventory space I actually have. That's always been an annoying thing to deal with, and I'm very happy to see that Diablo 4 is not going to incorporate that this time around. Like I said before, listen, if you've played Diablos 1, 2, or 3, you've already played 4. I mean, we've got hordes of enemies. We have an excellent variety in enemy design. We have really interesting and solid engaging battles. I mean, just the boss mechanics alone are incredible so far in this game. Obviously, they've taken a lot that they've learned from their time with World of Warcraft and some elements from other games and mashed it all into Diablo 4 and have created a very, very fun experience so far from what the beta has presented to us so far. The game feels really good to play on either mouse and keyboard or controller. I don't know if anyone here is curious or not, but I did try to play the game on controller with PC, and it works just fine, and it plays just as fine. As a matter of fact, oddly enough, I prefer to play with a controller than I did with mouse and keyboard, but just for the sake of keeping things, I guess, sensible, I stuck with mouse and keyboard. But if you ask me if I had to pick one between one or the other, I would pick a controller over the mouse and keyboard for this game specifically. However, the default mapping of the buttons for controller don't make much sense, so you're probably going to have to spend a little bit of time and remap everything on controller just so you can get it to where it feels organic, if that makes any sense at all. I think the most impressive thing so far about the game, and it's kind of a subtle detail, is that I appreciate the fact that I don't have to relearn Diablo jumping into part 4. If you've played the other ones, you've already played this one, you know how things work in the game already. You don't have to worry about learning all these crazy new mechanics and new gameplay styles and gameplay tropes or this and that. The gameplay is exactly like the other 3 have before it, and you can pretty much just jump right into the game and pick up the story and go. The one area where the game looks to have made its biggest and most impactful improvement is storytelling. This game, in just the short amount of time that I've put into it throughout this beta, has already given me a much more impactful and engaging story experience than Diablo 1, 2, and 3 ever did combined. The cutscenes in Diablo 3 were just plain bad. They especially the in-game cutscenes, they weren't really convincing or interesting enough to really retain my attention. And Diablo 4 has a more involved cutscene to where it drives the story forward. And this would be the first one where the story is actually interesting to me. The fact that we have more quote unquote traditional cutscenes where there's dialogue and characters, multiple characters are being introduced and you're speaking to different people and different things are happening. And it's not always just the overhead cutscene, really make this one stand out above the other three before it, because again, the other three's cutscenes and the way it presented its story and its narrative was just honestly uninteresting. And finally, Diablo 4 has managed to make it very interesting. And listen, we no longer have the Blizzard of back in the day. Okay, that Blizzard died a long time ago. But the Blizzard we have now, unfortunately, Blizzard Activision, the Blizzard we have now still has the potential to tell great stories. And I'm so glad to see that they're committing to delivering and upping their storytelling game with Diablo 4. The voice acting in this game is also absolutely stellar all around. Every single NPC that has any sort of spoken lines in this game sounds incredible. And of course, the main character is also a voice acted role. I'll tell you, oddly enough, the NPC's voice acting is better than the main character's voice acting, but I guess that's just how it happens because we just have like the most generic lines being the main character, which is not the traditional thing you find in most video games. In most video games, you find that the main character has the most depth in their lines that they're delivering, and the other supporting cast maybe don't have as much depth or as much impact in what they say. But in Diablo 4, from what I have found so far, is that the main character's lines are dull, to say the least, as opposed to the other supporting cast and NPCs. They have much more impact and much more substance in the lines that they're telling. Overall, I got to be honest with y'all, I already had plans to buy the game in June. I did not have plans to pre-order or much less play the beta, but I am so glad that I did that because this was a fantastic experience. In spite of all the crashing, in spite of the long queue times, in spite of all the bugs, I had an absolutely amazing time. And the one thing that does have me sad about all this, however, is that I'm going to have to wait till June to play this game because this game has made massive improvements over its predecessors in all the right ways, and I just can't wait to play more.